Hey everybody, this is Stuart Walton. Again, I'm the local GED software channel manager based here in the Atlanta area, support the Southeast, work in conjunction with our local channel partner, Advantage Industrial Automation. So I've got 9:02, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, I appreciate everybody joining us. This is third of in our series of webinars we're conducting regarding iFix 6.0. We did one in February, just kind of on the highlights of iFix 6.0. Did one in March on alarm shelving, and this one is an OPC UA server. I was going to turn it over to Denise Dewberry, our marketing manager, but as with all good webinars, she's having some technical issues, so she's online but unable to get the audio. So again, these webinars have been kind of sponsored by our local channel partner, Advantage Industrial Automation. So these things, just quick housekeeping, this thing should run about 20 minutes, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. So again, if you'd hold your questions till the end, we'd appreciate it. And I'm going to pass it over to Chad Smith. He's a technical product manager with the automation software group at GE Digital. Chad's been involved with automation software for 20 plus years with GE Digital. He's been in engineering, software management, and development. His current role is product owner and technical product manager for the HMI SCADA products. So with that, I will turn it over to Chad.
Great. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, I think we're good.
Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah, Chad Smith. I'm based out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, so way up north. We're enjoying the startings of spring, finally. Hopefully you are as well. Today, as mentioned, I'm going to introduce and talk a little bit more about the iFix OPC UA server that we built in iFix 6.0. We'll start, let's see, there we go. We'll start just talking a little bit about the merits of OPC UA itself. Many of you may already be familiar with it, but it's kind of the next generation up from our classic OPC communications. It's quickly becoming the de facto standard for communications for many different reasons. One of the biggest being its ability to provide secure communications between client and server. So in our case, iFix has developed the server side, allowing any other OPC UA client to connect through this common standard specification interface, and to be able to connect securely using certificate trust communications that are much easier to set up than in the past when you had to set up DCOM, and are kind of built from the ground up to be able to do that kind of communication, and as well to do it across operating systems. It's not operating system dependent as OPC Classic was. So that's just a quick reminder of why we're interested in OPC UA. It's a big part of our strategy, and so we're excited to introduce that in the iFix 6.0 release. So I'll just quickly highlight a couple of things about how we implemented it in iFix, and talk about some of the ways we configure it initially, and then I'll go right into a demo of actually setting it up and communicating to an iFix node database and alarms through an OPC UA client. So as I mentioned, we have exposed both the data through the iFix database and the alarms and events that are triggered in iFix through this OPC UA server, making it available to ERP clients and others. Anyone who has a standard OPC UA client can connect and connect securely. So initially, when you first install iFix 6.0 and open up a project or a node and database, the iFix OPC UA server is initially off by default. It's something we want to have you consciously turn on, being aware of that it's exposing that data and setting it up securely. As I mentioned, it's requires valid some certificate management. There's a couple of different methods to do that. I'll show you both of them, hopefully, if we have time. both through a self-signed certificate and through the use of a part of the OPC specification is the concept of a global discovery server, which provides a central repository both for discovering servers on the network and managing those certificates. And just a quick note that if a lot of what I'll share today has been put into videos and posted on YouTube, and you can go check that out on our G Digital channel if you want to dig into it some more. So I'll just quickly highlight that concept of certificate management, because it really is a central part of the OPC UA experience to manage the secure connection between the two applications. So as I mentioned, there's two aspects to that. One is connecting from clients to a UA server without the use of a centralized global discovery server. In that case, each client must establish a trust link with the server, and the server must in turn individually recognize each client that needs to communicate to, and they need to exchange and trust each other's certificates in this manner. The concept of a global discovery server is that everyone connects to and registers with and has their certificate signed by a central global discovery server, in which case then when they connect to each other, they look at that root of trust that starts with that global discovery server and trust each other because of that common parental trust. So that's just a quick introduction. I won't go too deep into that. And of course, as I mentioned, it becomes a discovery server as well, where clients can go out and find all the servers on the network that have registered and connect to them. So with that, we'll dig right into the demo. I think we have some time at the end to go into questions. So for the most part, I'm just going to go ahead and demo this for you, and then we'll definitely have time for questions. If you'd like to stick questions in the chat window, feel free to do so, just to remind yourself of anything that you wanted to discuss. So with that, I'll close the presentation. And so here we have the iFix workspace. In the iFix workspace, we've added to the Applications tab an OPC UA configuration icon. And that opens up your configuration of the server. As I mentioned, when you first start iFix, this won't be enabled, so you'll want to enable that. So that enables so that when you restart iFix, it will start up the OPC UA server and start serving out data and alarms. In the configuration, you have the ability to specify which port it will serve data on. This is changeable. Typically, you would only change this if you needed to avoid a conflict with another application on the system, potentially another OPC UA server. But we tried to pick one that's fairly unique. And then you can fill out some of the details that will appear in your certificate to make it unique on the network. So for example, our company, I could say my organization name is GE, and that changes the URI, or the unique identifier for this server. The endpoint URL here is the endpoint that you will actually use when you connect to the server with a client. So you can take this is the address on the network of this OPC UA server. You're able to configure different levels of logging. Especially as you're starting up and getting connections going, this can be useful to troubleshoot why things aren't connecting, for example. Of course, security, as I mentioned, is a key aspect to the whole communication experience, and we've made it configurable, allowing you to decide what secure endpoints that clients will have exposed to be able to connect through. So, for example, when you first start up and are just trying to establish communications, you may want to enable no security just to make sure that the connection is working. But typically, you wouldn't want that to be enabled for clients to connect through. You would want your clients to be required to establish a trust connection. And so you could only enable the ones that you want exposed. In some cases, if you're working with older OPC UA clients, you may need to enable some of the older protocols that aren't as secure anymore. By default, we enable those most secure protocols. I'll just leave that on for now. As I mentioned, we also expose the alarms from iFix through this OPC UA server. There's a few settings that you can control in terms of the alarm queue size and refresh rates, as well as the ability to map iFix priorities on alarms to the ranges of the OPC UA specification in terms of severity. So severity in OPC UA ranges from 0 to 999, and so you can decide to map what priorities map into those severity levels, and that will affect how your clients interpret the severity levels. Finally, there's obviously the certificate management. You can see that we've built into iFix the ability to directly work with the Global Discovery Server, both in connecting and then requesting your certificate to be signed and to be registered with the GDS here. So I'll go into that a little bit more in a minute. We've also, especially if you're not using a Global Discovery Server, we've built in to the configuration the ability to manage certificates of clients who are connecting to you that you do not trust yet, and allow you to work with them. So I'll show you that as well. So that's essentially the configuration aspect of the OPC UA server for iFix. Now what we'll do is we'll actually start up a client. This is a client from the Unified Automation folks, and let's make that a little bigger. So what you would want to do from a client is to add a server, and in this case we'll call it iFix demo. And as I mentioned, what you'll need to do is you'll need to put in the endpoint URL, the address of our OPC UA server on the network. So I copied that from that configuration dialog, so we'll connect to it on port 514800. Also, the other aspect of OPC UA is that you have the ability to require authentication. So with iFix has kind of two modes. One, you can start out with no security configured, which we respect, in which case you would be able to connect anonymously to it. Or and often recommended, is setting up security on iFix and requiring connections to authenticate with iFix users. So in this case, I'll give my credentials so that I can log in. So then it tries to connect. When the server tries to connect, it initially looks at that server certificate from that connection and says, I don't know who you are. And so on the client side, as well as the server, both need to trust each other. So I'm on this client side, I'm going to trust that server certificate. But then you'll see, actually, hold on. Let me go back one point. You can see here, I missed one step. Back when I was configuring it, you saw that I changed the organization name to GE. That invalidates the certificate because that information is part of that certificate. You can see that my current certificate doesn't include that. So I actually need to generate another self-signed certificate to be able to properly do that. So I'm going to try to connect again here. And you could, hold on. I think UA Expert caches some stuff here. I'm just going to open that up again. Oops. I'm going to open up UA Expert again. Right, so we're going to add that server again real quick here. It's all still there. Oh, log in. Oh, anyways, it's obviously happy to connect to me. In any case, what would happen? So what happens here? Hold on. You know what? I think here's my problem. So let me go back. If you look at my properties, you'll see. Yeah, let me disconnect. As you remember, I actually enabled the no security connection. So I'm going to now go into my security settings and actually require, ideally, like I mentioned, I should require you to connect securely. So the reason it was connecting because I was connecting with no security. Now I'm going to actually connect with security. And in this case, let's connect. You can see that in the messages here, that because I tried to connect securely, the client trusts the server, but my server doesn't yet trust this client. So if I go into my trust list, you can see now, because this client tried to securely connect with my server, I'm back in the OPC UA server configuration in iFix. This trust list tab lets me manage certificates. So in this case, the UA expert just tried to connect to me, and I don't trust it yet. So I can actually take a look at its certificate, you know, to make sure that it's someone I trust, it's a client that I trust to connect to this server, and I can actually hit the trust button here and trust that certificate. So then now when I try to connect, I can connect securely and successfully because I've established that trust between the two applications. So here in the browse window, you'll see that iFix exposes its namespace of its server and its tags through this kind of hierarchy. So today we expose a tags and alarms folders to expose both tags and alarms, and within the tags we organize our namespace by tag type. So for example, if I wanted to see all the tags that are analog inputs, I could see those here, and I could actually now, let me widen this out a little bit, I can now subscribe to and get data from this running iFix system in this client by dragging, oh, here I'll show you just quickly a little bit more. You can dig into this namespace, and if I wanted to just get the value of that point, I would be able to put it into my subscription window here and see, you can see the value updating from my iFix system. So let me just open up the corresponding side of that. So you can see the value changing here and the matching value in iFix here. So we're actually getting data from iFix through this OPC UA server. You also have the ability to access all of the attributes of an iFix tag. They're all listed underneath the value tag in iFix, or sorry, in the namespace of the OPC UA server. So all of those are available, and you can subscribe to all of those. Finally, as I mentioned, we can talk to all of the alarms in iFix as well. There's the ability to subscribe to different parts of the alarm space. So to demonstrate that, in this OPC UA client, I have the ability to have an event view. This client supports alarms and events. So if I can now subscribe to all of the alarms in iFix by subscribing to the parent alarm folder. So you can see here, just widen this out, I've subscribed to all of the alarms in iFix. So let me just open up an iFix and alarm window here. So you can see that this matching set of alarms shows up here in my OPC UA client because I've subscribed to every alarm that's happening in iFix. If, for example, I only wanted to subscribe to one of the alarm areas in iFix, I could, I get a list of all the alarm areas. I could subscribe to only that particular area, for example. Or if I wanted to get even more granular, I could choose to subscribe to only one tag alarms by dragging that tag into the subscription configuration, and then I would only see alarms from that particular tag. So that there's a level of granularity in terms of what a client can subscribe to and receive for alarms in iFix as well. So that's your basic communication aspect of it. Now, to close out here this part of the demo, I'm just going to show you briefly how iFix interacts with the global discovery server. So let me pull up. I have another client. This one is our Simplicity SCADA, which has an OPC UA client. It's set up to try to connect to that same server. And when I first try to connect, we don't trust each other. But this client has been registered with the Global Discovery Server. Let me just show you that real quick. So on this machine, we have a product, a GE Global Discovery Server, that you can install, download and install to actively manage all of your certificates on your with your OPC UA system. So this I have this global discovery server running. So if I want now to have my iFix server work and connect to other clients who are registered with the global discovery server, I can actually request from the global discovery server that it sign my certificate. And if you look now at our certificate, it is no longer self-signed, it is CA issued. And that means that it now has a certificate signed by that global discovery server. So the one aspect of changing in iFix your certificates is that in order for that to take effect, we need to restart iFix so that it restarts that server. So I'll just do that real quick. And I'll just, hopefully it doesn't take too long. I think we're getting close to our time limit here. So this will be the last thing I show you before we open up to questions. You can see the server closing down.
I guess while we're waiting, is there any,
yeah,
because I know we're coming up on the
yeah, let's open it up.
There's one question, I guess, will iFix, or there's a question in the chat.
Right, yeah, I'm opening that up now. Yep. So will Historian iFix Collector use UA? That would be ideal. Today it was not changed. It still uses the Historian APIs. That is an option that we'll look forward to continue. I don't know when that may or may not happen, but as of today it does not. So I don't think this is going to, I think I'll be able to finish off the end part of this demo. I'll just, really what you would have seen is that after having started up iFix again, that OPC UA client would have been able to connect securely because they're both signed by the GDS. I apologize, for some reason iFix isn't completely shutting down for me.
No good demo, right?
I know, eh? Yep.
Right? Nature of the beast. Another in the chat window. Another question. With
multiple brands of devices, you need to use multiple OPC UA OPC servers? No. So this one OPC UA server running, if multiple clients connect, it's totally supported, creates a different session for each client. And that one UA server continues to handle those multiple connections.
All right, so I guess, Chad, you're wrapped up then?
Yeah, any questions, you can open it up for discussion.
There's another one in the chat window.
Possible to use UA access to replace having iFix write alarm events to an SQL table? Potentially. I think it really depends on what your UA client, like you could have a UA client that retrieves those alarms and puts those in an SQL table. That would be client specific.
Again, we appreciate, if there's no more questions, we appreciate everybody joining, and we'll let you get back at it. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.